Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 8. The Lord slays the king of the demons, text 33. Danus tat satot shipta vimana sankula. Prapsarpata shama chapada vipidita. Shalila samud petur amusharamba ramhasa. Tatejasa kam kakubo na rejire. Danos tat satot kshipta vamana sankula. Protsarpita kshama chapadvi bidita. Shala samut petur amusharam hasa. Tate desakam kakubo narejare. Ramasa. Anyos tat sampakita vimana sankula. Prapsopita shama chapadubhavita. Shalila sampetitur amusharam hasa. Tate jasakam kukubo narajare. Dwao. It depends how you want to chant for each other. A could be owl, could be O, depend. Generally translate the actual Sanskrit pronunciation is owl, but generally when you use a Bengali one it's O. So it's dwao. Anyway, either one. Dwao is hard to pronounce. Bande rupa sanatanao. So generally they just use Bande rupa sanatano ragu yago, although it's owl. Okay, owl, dwao, outer space. Tat sata, by his hair. Ukshipita, thrown up. Vimana sankula, filled with airplanes. Propsarpita, slipped out of place. Shma, the planet Earth. Cha, also. Para abhitita, stress due to heavy weight of the Lord's lotus feet of the Lord. Shaila, the hills and mountains. Samud Petu, sprang up. Amusha, of that one the Lord. Ramhasa, due to the intolerable force. Tat Tejasa, by his effulgence, come the sky, Kakuba, the 10 directions. Nare Jare did not shine. Translation and purports by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Airplanes were thrown into outer space and the upper planetary system by the hair on Nrsingadev's head. Because of the pressure of the Lord's lotus feet, the earth appeared to slip from its position, and all the hills and mountains sprung up due to his intolerable force. Because of the Lord's bodily effulgence, both the sky and all directions diminished in their natural illumination. Purport: that there were airplanes flying in the sky long ago, can be understood from this verse. Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken 5,000 years ago, and the statements of this verse prove that the symptoms of a very advanced civilization then existed, even in the upper planetary system, as well as in the lower planetary systems. Modern scientists and philosophers foolishly explain that there was no civilization prior to 3,000 years ago, but the statement in this verse nullifies such whimsical judgments. The Vedic civilization existed millions and millions of years ago. It existed since the creation of this universe and included arrangements all over the universe with all modern amenities and even more. Om Vishnuvaraya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskadyade Siddharane. Prabhupada, as usual, is taking Srimad Bhagavatam as the pramana. Pramana means proof. Srimad Bhagavatam pramanam amalam. Prema pramartha mahan. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is given different siddhantas, beginning with Rajavadu Kalena, that the best worship of Krishna is by the Rajavadus, the gopis of Vrindavan. And who is that Krishna? He is the son of Nanda Maharaj. His abode is Vrindavan. He lives in Vrindavan. And the best way of knowing Krishna, Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam, the best of all the Puranas, of all the authoritative scriptures, is Srimad Bhagavatam. And the goal is Prema Pamartha Mohan. The goal is to obtain Prema, or Krishna consciousness of love for Krishna. Now, why do we accept Srimad Bhagavatam as a Purana? Why not? Well, it's almost like a person in this modern civilization. If we hear our proof, as Srimad Bhagavatam says that Lord Nrsingadev, or that 5,000 years ago at least, were airplanes. Now, who's going to say, well, that's good. That's scientific proof. And then they'll say, well, we've dug up the earth. Where are the airplanes? Well, the airplanes weren't made to, well, whatever. So why do we accept Srimad Bhagavatam? Aren't we into science? Are we anti-science? Is this just fanatical sentiment? We wave the Bhagavatam around. I am the truth, the light, etc. We have the truth here. If you don't accept it, you're going to visit Yamaraj. Polite way of saying you're going to hell. No, because why do we say this is actually proof? Because it's based on science, actually real science. And what is that real science? Real science begins with the fact that two things, more than two things, but the main two things. We're all eternal. We're all eternal souls, and that's an a priori because it's an obvious scientific fact. Matter of fact, this is real science. As I said, Prabhupada was in Durban, was at a conference, and he mentioned about transmigration of the soul. And one Indian gentleman challenged him, who was also at the conference, and said, Swamiji, why are you bringing up this Hindu doctrine at this conference? We want to talk about science. The Prabhupada said, this is actually science. This is real science. It's not that 5,000 years ago, Krishna was speaking to Arjuna, and he told Arjuna, my dear Arjuna, we're on this battlefield, and many people are going to die. So therefore I should speak to you some philosophy. You seemed a little disturbed, so let me talk to you some Hindu philosophy. After all, I'm a Hindu god, and you're a Hindu, so we should talk Hindu philosophy. Maybe you'll feel better afterwards. But we know there was no Hinduism 5,000 years ago. There was no Hinduism probably 700 years ago. Hinduism was the word given to the people who lived on the other side of the Hindus River, of the Hindu mountain, or the Hindus River. In any case, Krishna was not a Hindu god, nor is Arjuna a Hindu, nor is he speaking Hindu philosophy, that all Hindus have bodies that change, and the non-Hindus don't have bodies that change. But luckily, Hindus have souls. So when they have to change their body, they get another one, unlike all the other non-Hindus. No, that's not Hindu philosophy. It's science. Everyone's body is changing. Not only human beings, but all the different species of life are in changing bodies, but the person who's conscious of the body is not changing. And how do we know that? Because we're in one of these bodies and we're not changing. Now, if someone can't understand that, that's not the problem of Krishna or the Bhagavad Gita. For those who can understand it, they'll understand that that's real knowledge. If you try to explain this to a dog, he'll just he may not even wave his tail. He may even not appreciate that much. He may even growl at you for speaking such philosophy to him. That doesn't make it any less true. In any case, for those who can accept it, then that serves the basis of our proof. Now, if people don't accept that, everything else that they're supposing is based on another premise, that we are this body. And at the end of this body, either we don't know what's going to happen or that we have so many speculations. In any case, there's two choices. Either we're eternal souls or we're not. If we're not eternal souls, then we can take the history as the mundane historians try to present it to us, or the mundane scientists, then in the beginning there is nothing. But if we're eternal, then how could there be nothing at the beginning? So you're wrong, according to our obvious proof that we're eternal. You're completely wrong. Everything you're saying is wrong. In the beginning, there wasn't nothing. We were all there at the beginning. Eternally, we've been there. But to speak of beginning, there is no beginning. There's only eternity. But they take it in the beginning there was nothing, and then by some jugglery of words and mathematical equations, then they got something, a little bit of gas. Fill up a 1,500-page book with equations to prove that from nothing, a little bit of gas could come. So they're crazy. That's all. They're just... And anyone who wants to read through the 1,500 pages of equations to prove that out of nothing something came is also crazy. It's not science because no one has ever seen from nothing anything comes. Otherwise, why don't we just stay in our room and maybe out of nothing we'll become rich. The money will just appear. Why work so hard? Why go to school? Just sit in your room, eat prasadam, and maybe a PhD will appear. You'll become recognized. No one believes it. People want money, they go and work for it. They want a degree, they have to go to school. Nothing comes out of nothing. As I've said before, the only void exists is between the people's ears that believe that there's a void. So that's our first premise. The second premise is we can see if we want to accomplish something, we have to use our intelligence. If we want to bring disorder into order, then we have to use intelligence. It doesn't come from the material nature left by itself. It's called entropy. Even the scientists have this law called entropy. Matter left to itself becomes disorganized. If you have an apple, very nicely organized, the pit's there, the inner skin, the outer skin is there, but just leave it for a year, 2 years, 100 years, the whole thing will just dissolve. It'll become less organized. Therefore, when we see organization, even within our own lives, like in this room, we understand someone created the room with their intelligence. The lights, the water, the floor, the walls were all created by intelligence, by intelligent people. Persons with intelligence organize things. So if we see the universe is organized beyond our comprehension, then we understand the person who organized it is also beyond our comprehension. So with those two things, we can understand we're eternal, there's an eternal supreme person, and if we don't believe that just by the organization of the universe it proves his existence, then we have to accept at least time, which is changing everything, which we have absolutely no control over, but has control over everything in the material world. So time must be taken as the supreme, at least. And time is working in such a way as to create organization in the universe. So we can say who's ever time must be quite intelligent. And Krishna says, Kalos me, I am time, one of his energies. So with those two things in mind, then if we're eternal, then there's a lot of time. So if now these souls and these bodies have created a so-called civilization, so why couldn't there be multiple civilizations since eternity, since we've been here, or time immemorial, however we want to look at it? Why can't there be even more advanced civilizations than what we have now? Supposedly we're making advancements scientifically or technologically. So in the past, why couldn't there have been even more technologically advanced civilizations? Since we were 5,000 years, we date history back 5,000 years, but that's not the beginning of history. We're eternals, so we've been in the material world for a while. There have been billions of years, trillions of years of history that we just don't know about. So because we don't know about it, just proves that we're ignorant. We don't know who we are. We don't know what we're not. We think we're ourselves to be something we're not. So we don't know anything. And when we arrogantly say we know all of history, we don't know, that's just arrogance. Well, they say, well, you dug into the earth. Well, you dug into the earth, and then anything you don't like, you find you just throw away. That doesn't fit your prejudice. That makes it easy. Keep your authority. Just eliminate anything that doesn't agree with you. It's like you have a vote, and the vote turns out that 50% one side, 50% the other side. So if you want to get a unanimous decision, just kill off the people who didn't vote on your side. Then automatically you get unanimity. So you have evidence, you dig into the earth, you find, as Dhruta Karmaprabhu points out, you find some vessel, you date it by your scientific methods, 3 billion years, it doesn't fit your equation, so you just throw it away. And you just smile. Say you're a scientist. And anyone who doesn't agree with you is a religious fanatic. Even if they use your own methods, they're just using it wrong because they're getting the wrong conclusion. The only right conclusion is your conclusion. Everything else is fanaticism. So in this way, people are believing that there's actually science based upon observation, based upon theory, observation, or theory, experiment, and observation. No, they have crazy theory. They make an experiment. They don't get the right observation. You just throw out the whole thing and start over again till finally they get what they're looking for. It's not science. It's science fiction. But people like science fiction. That's why they came to the material world. They didn't come here to find out what reality is. They came here to dream something unreal. And anyone who helps them dream something unreal, for many people, that's welcome. Everything else is given some label that can allow them to reject it without any reason. Therefore, the conclusion is that Srimad Bhagavatam describes things which go beyond our experience. We don't have to accept them blindly, and we don't have to reject them blindly either. Now, we accept them, it's on the basis of the fact that we have no idea what's going on. At least the Bhagavatam has given us some information that there's a God, and that we're subordinate to Him. They tell us about time. They tell us about so many other things that are perceivable by us. So if they talk about things that are not perceivable by us, then generally speaking, what's being presented to us is not to confuse us or cause doubts, but to give us examples of principles that we can apply in our devotional service so that we can actually gradually understand things correctly. Our intelligence can become purified, so these things become obvious, rather than having our doubts reject everything that we don't perceive or agree with. At least put our doubts aside and try to understand the principle that's being explained here. Bhagavatam is not some fairy tale to put us to sleep at night. It's a practical guide for self-realization, explaining principles since time immemorial, gathering principles from time immemorial to show us what the path of devotion is. And of course, if they just use ordinary examples, we wouldn't be very impressed. They use an example like Lord Nrsingadev or Prahlad Maharaj. That's quite impressive. If all we were trying to do is tolerate someone, if they stick a pin in me, how can I tolerate? If only the only thing that by concentrating my mind upon Krishna, I can tolerate someone sticking a pin in me. It wouldn't be very much toleration, especially at the time of death. It wouldn't do me very much good. But if someone like Prahlad Maharaj comes along, they're being thrown over a mountain, they're being put under the feet of an elephant, they're being tortured in so many different ways, and yet they just keep on chanting Hare Krishna undisturbed. Well, this is something which would really help us at the time of death to come to that standard. And if Prahlad Maharaj, what was he thinking? Because after all, according to what we're thinking, that's how we experience things. Was he thinking about his grandmother that made him so tolerant? What was he thinking about? He must have been thinking about something extraordinary to become so tolerant. Therefore, here we have Lord Nrsingadev. And he's not an ordinary personality. And he's being explained as an extraordinary personality. Now, if we reject Prahlad Maharaj and say, well, he couldn't have existed, well, why not? There are different degrees of tolerance. There's even, within historical records, one Sikh, he was captured. Well, actually, there was one sultan, because at that time India was ruled by the Muslims. And the Sikh was the head of the Sikh community at that time. And the sultan's, actually it was his brother, did a revolution against him, which he didn't succeed, but the Sultan started to gather up anyone who could possibly have been opposing to him. And it just so happened that the Sultan's brother had gone and visited this Sikh, the head of the Sikh community. So he's arrested everyone. Demons don't really care, they just kill everyone. So he arrested him and he tortured him. His torture is he fried his body on an oven. He did a couple of things before that. I think He poured hot coal over his body, burned his skin away, etc., etc. Did many things. And when he was put on the hot oven, his request was, can you turn me over? I think I'm done on this side. So he was explaining that actually he was trying to show tolerance to his community. That if one is actually advanced, even spiritually, then one can tolerate even some major tortures of pain. So what to speak of Prahlad Maharaj, who actually had fixed Krishna in his consciousness completely, who was on the spiritual platform, who was living in Vaikuntha. So it's not that it's impossible, Srimad Bhagavatam. It's just not within our current realm of experience, or completely within our realm of experience. It's partially within the realm of experience. And if we want to come to this ideal, if we don't consider that ideal, we don't really care how much tolerant we are. That someone throws a flower at us and we fall over, we can't tolerate it in a flower. Just like nowadays in the universities, especially in America, they have what's called snowflakes. Snowflakes are that even if you say, nowadays, if you go to a university and you call someone a man, they can't tolerate it. Or a woman, they can't tolerate it. It mentally disturbs them. And you can get fired from your position or dismissed from the university just by calling someone a man or a woman, because you're disturbing people's minds. Soon you'll be arrested and tortured if you breathe too hard, because you disturb someone's mind. So which way do we want to go? That level of tolerance? Or we want to go to the level of tolerance of Prahlad Maharaj? And we want to find out if by chanting Hare Krishna, by becoming Krishna conscious, if we don't become more tolerant, then we can experiment. Otherwise, if we don't really care, then we become a snowflake. Because that's where everyone's heading for. So that's our choice. So we take this as all fairy tale, Srimad Bhagavatam, airplanes in the sky, when thousands of years ago. Then we can do that, and we'll miss the whole point, that this is a fairy tale, and just dismiss it, rather than just try to find out why Shukadeva Goswami spoke Srimad Bhagavatam. Is there any truth to the fact that we're eternal? Is there actually a supreme controller in the universe? Is time actually affecting everything? So many different things we can think about. And if the answer is yes, we're eternal, there is a supreme controller, then these people who are doubting Srimad Bhagavatam, they're completely wrong. Their premise of doubt is wrong, because they don't even know. They have no basis of knowledge whatsoever. Their basis of knowledge is scientific proof. The scientists haven't proved anything. The only thing they proved is that they don't know anything. By so-called scientific knowledge, they don't find out anything. All they find out is what they don't know. They never get anything positive. There's always some doubt. They hit some neutron with some electron. Something comes out. They say that's what it's made out of. That's what the nucleus is made out of. But you take a dog, you hit the dog, and wolves come out. Does that mean the dog is made out of wolves? So they have no real idea. They're just playing around, trying to pretend that they know something. They don't even know who they are or who they're not. So why should we take them so seriously? So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Regarding this point, why they don't just sit in the room and wait for something to happen. I think they would say, yes, we agree with what you say, that you have to do something to happen, but why I'm doing it also, and why I'm not just waiting, is because I want to perpetuate it, like to happen faster.
What happened faster?
To get a degree or earn some money or something. But
okay, so
if I would
an example of a monkey sitting, monkey sitting around for 5,000 years, 10,000, and give us an example of someone who just patiently waited in the king. What is your science? Science, as you say, is based on a theory, an experiment, and an observation. Tell us what your theory is. Show us your experiment and tell us where's the observation. Otherwise, you're just bluffing, talking nonsense. Anything else? Yes.
Maharaj, what's your view on devotees feeding their pet animals, dogs and cats, with commercial food which is made of meat?
I don't have it. In Bhagavatam class, I have absolutely no opinion on it.
Is there any scriptural evidence that is...
I think we should stick to what the topics we're discussing, because we'll go far afield. People will forget actually what the message is. The question may be valid, but we should ask it appropriately at the appropriate time. Otherwise, it may not be so. The answer may not be beneficial for the audience. Okay, thank you very much. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande.